Okay, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be using my game because this video is going to be on states. States in SRPG Studio are like status conditions. They could be poison, do damage over time. They can cripple a person where they aren't able to use certain abilities. You could turn someone invisible. Not necessarily the way you might think. It's not as easy as just clicking a button, but you can see how we can get this to work. Let me just open up a map. Actually, let me go to my test map. And let's open up states. I have a state called attacked. So when an enemy uses a physical attack on one of our units, it places the attacked status condition on them. And using a plugin that the creator of SRPG Studio made for me, I can find out the unit that has this status on them, and then create an event such as, okay, you attacked me, you put the attacked command or attack state on me. That triggers, so I know I have been attacked by a physical attack. I can now potentially counter you if I have the counter skill, or maybe I have a shield that poisons you. So since I know I have been attacked, my shield will then it will ask if I have the shield on, and then if I have the shield on, it will cast poison on you. And then it will know to remove the attacked status. So you really never know that the status actually exists. You just know that the shield casted poison on that person because you were attacked. Now another one is untargetable. If I want to turn someone invisible, or if I want someone to play dead, I put untargetable on that unit. So let me show you an example. I'm going to do this map test. I have my frog archer, and he uses something called croak, where he plays dead. You now see the X comes up that makes him untargetable, and none of these guys are going to go target, even if they're in range. Well, you'll just see none of them are going to go for him. Even though he's right there in front of them, none of them are going to target. I can do the same thing happens if I have this guy and I cast disappear. This person now becomes invisible and is untargetable. They won't target this person while they are invisible because they have the untargetable stat on them, or state on them. So that's a couple things you can do with states. And just so you know how that works, is that I created each of my enemy units. You can see they are defaulted to approach, but here with their pattern data, they are told do not aim, and then I have states untargetable. So they do not aim for units that have the state untargetable. That is one way to use a state beyond just like a poison. And I have poisons right here. For example, let me pull this back up. This is my operative, sort of like a thief. She has different poisons that she can apply to the enemy. They also come as attacks as well. So slow poison, I will put a state on the enemy, so I attack them, and then the state that I put on them reduces their movement by 3. Regular poison just does damage to the enemy. It could be 6 damage a turn, 10 damage a turn. It depends on how strong my operative is. Caustic poison puts a state on them which reduces their defense, so everyone hitting them will do more damage. And crippling poison puts the state cripple on them. And I don't even remember what that does. But let's see here. Crippled. Prohibit physical abilities and item usage. So the enemy will not be able to attack or use items. They could still move, possibly still use a spell. But actually, if I got rid of item, they can't use a spell. So maybe I want to get rid of that item usage part. No, I'll leave it there because sometimes I use items as physical abilities. But yeah, so if they're crippled, they can't really do anything, but they can move. Okay? Intractable wounds. This might look like it doesn't do anything here. But intractable wounds reduces new healing effects by 25%. Actually, I'm just going to reduce that to healing effects, because I did actually fix it to work with all healing effects. The duration is 2 turns. And basically nothing happens in this state right here. However, I have made it so all of my healing abilities, for example, I have, this is a priest, and he has the ability heal. Heal works by taking his magic stat and then healing an ally for that amount of magic. However, if you see here, I have triggers. If the unit has intractable wounds 1, my heal gets multiplied by 75%, therefore reducing the healing by 25%. So I can put conditions just because the state itself doesn't do anything. I can use the state to tell other abilities to not work or be modified. Here's another interesting way I'm using states. If I have an enemy, alright, and once again, this one's going to be called Engaged Isaac. And when I say engaged, when I have a unit, usually some kind of tank, attack an enemy with a certain ability, it will engage that enemy to attack the tank the next turn. So in this case, I have Engaged Isaac. It lasts for 1 turn. It doesn't do anything other than just remain on that enemy. And let me test the map. This is Isaac. I am going to have him use Sword and Board on this Goblin Warrior. He is now going to put the state Engaged Isaac on him. As you can see right here, it has his little face. This unit will prioritize attacking Isaac. So next turn, watch, this unit specifically is going to attack Isaac. Even if he can't get to Isaac, he was going to just not do anything. He's not going to go for anyone else. See, he went for Isaac, and he missed. So you basically created some kind of taunt ability to force an enemy to attack you. Now, what caused him to do that? Well, in his actions, I have these pages right here which can modify his actions. And on this second page, I have that if the active unit is alive, so during his turn, if he has Engaged Isaac, follow this set of actions as opposed to his default actions. So this set of actions tells him to aim for Isaac. And I have that for every unit in my game, and I have that ability for that to happen for any of my player characters if I wanted that. But I did that from the beginning. Okay, what are some other ways I use states? Sometimes I have just states that reduce the enemy stats, and that's all I wanted to do. So if I have an enemy that's hard to hit, I can try and put this on it, and it will make it about 15% easier to hit. And I make it easier to crit, and I can reduce its maximum hit points. If you see here, grappling hook, shockwave, whirlwind, this is how I get enemies to use abilities. We will go into that later. That is a bit more complicated and uses a plugin, but states can be used in a number of different ways. So I have disorient. You can have a bleed, so it just does the extra damage over time. Burning, I just have as extra damage over time. Cold reduces the enemy's movement. Corrode reduces the enemy's defense. Shock reduces the enemy's resistance. Atrophy is damage over time, but over a long period of time. So less potent damage immediately, but more damage over the long term. Penance reduces the enemy's damage or strength and magic. Blessing increases everything, all stats. These are more traditional states. Curse reduces all stats. This is your typical poisons. A lot of these are the same as some of those other abilities, but I want them classified as poison in case I want a character who can only heal poisons, and they can't heal the more magical type of abilities. Now, bloody is an interesting one. I have a boss that, so in the boss battle, a bunch of the units can place, when they attack you, they increase your stacks of bloody. So if you have 1 stack of bloody, it'll go up to 2. If they attack you again, it goes up to 3, and so on. And then the boss does extra damage based on how bloody your character is. So he gets to attack 3 times a turn. So if you have bloody 10 on, and he attacks you 3 times, that's an extra 30 damage. Defense increases your defense stat. Resistance increases your resistance stat. Camaraderie increases, just more increases in stats. Blind makes it harder for people to hit you with normal attacks. Overheat, that's for my robot character. So the way my robot character works is when he starts the battle, he's super strong, but every turn he gets progressively weaker, and then you have to kind of reboot him for a turn or two to get him back to his original state, nice and strong. So the longer he keeps going, the worse his stats get, which he just gets a new state, a worse version of the same state, until all of his stats are pretty bad. Haste increases movement speed. Slow decreases movement speed. Concentration is an ability a character uses to make them hit harder and more accurately, because they have a big sword and they don't hit very accurately unless they use abilities. Regenerate heals over time. Same thing with consecrate. Bone armor, this actually works with that attacked ability up above. It'll put a certain level of defense on a character, but until they are attacked once. Once they are attacked, it comes off. So you have a big enemy that you know is going to attack someone. You put bone armor on them. It'll reduce the damage and immediately come off. But if you have a bunch of enemies going for the person, let's say they're all only going to do 5 damage, it'll only prevent that 5 damage once. Okay, more just stat boosters. A lot of these are just for using abilities, as I said before. Tranquilize makes it so an enemy loses their turn, or basically goes to sleep for 2 turns. The duration is 2 turns. Impassive, that's another ability I used, but it increases your unit's stats using states with an ability. Some of these are more technical, such as brush shot, sure hit. Some of these are states granted by items. So this item would give you 3 strength and 3 magic for 4 turns if you use it. Here you can do act again if you want to have one unit have the other unit have an extra turn. You could put a state on someone where they're allowed to counterattack. Since I don't have counterattacking in my game, you can make it so a state allows for it. Let's say I have an ability, let's say Chain Lightning, and I want it to jump from one unit to the other to another, but I don't want it to bounce back at the same unit. I can put a state on that unit and say that when it's trying to bounce back, if they have that state, it's going to skip that unit and bounce to someone else. That's the way I had my Chain Lightning work. And that's about it for states. They can just be used for stat boost. They can be used for recovery, or for healing, or just as a type of poison damage. They can restrict things. You can change the amount of turns. You can add an animation to them, but I usually like to do animations based on my skills rather than just having the status effect do it. I guess it can make it so you can't act. You could be berserk, or you can make it so the person loses control. You can make it so they give you skills, and I will get into skills on another video. Deduction each turn. Oh, I think that's if your poison hits for 6, and then I want the next turn for it to hit for 4 and then 2. I can put the deduction each turn as 2, and it will be more potent in the beginning and then trail off. Auto removal condition, so the state will last until you enter battle, or an attack hits you, or something like that, and you can set the number of times. You have to be hit 3 times to get out of it. But that's about it for states. You will see them used plenty of times when I'm creating abilities. And I will see you in the next video.